Hello. Today we're going to take a look at the Schedule suite of apps for Kahua. This overview is intended for users who are familiar with the core applications of Kahua, basic configurations, and Kahua's cost applications. While we will briefly touch on configurations, a detailed guide to configuring the application for your use case can be found in the guidebook. All right, let's start in the Walnut Greens project of the Running Kahua sales demo domain. A quick note for our partners and Kahua representatives, please make sure you're accessing this domain via Deb Weekly. So let's get started with a new record. This is very typical to how you would create new records in other applications within Kahua. So we're going to start by giving this record a name. This is not an external schedule. That would be used if, say, we had a subcontractor and they were sending us a schedule. Start and end date will be populated by that schedule file, and task relationships are the predecessors and successors. So we're just going to bring that information in as well. So I'm going to select my schedule file. Now this one is using an XCR file from Primavera P6. Schedules works with either P6 or Microsoft Project, so MPP files, the same way. So I'm actually going to change the effective date to May 1st. This is the same as the data date, or the date that the data is accurate through. Don't need to give it a description or comments. Don't have any additional Kahua docs that I want to add. These are standard Kahua files. So then I'm going to save the record. So what this does is it creates the record and it saves that XCR file to Kahua. Our next step is to submit the record. Now that I've hit submit, this starts the process, the workflow behind the scenes where Kahua is extracting all of the data from that XCR file and it's turning it into scheduled tasks. Now, when you have a schedule, especially a larger schedule, this can take up to a few minutes. Think when you're going to have over 1,000 to 2,000 lines, this can take a couple minutes, that initial time, because it is taking every single Primavera activity and it is turning it into a scheduled task. In MPP, those are called Microsoft Project tasks. So now we are processed. So we can see down here that our activities have been turned into tasks. So I'm going to navigate to that task section where I can look at them one by one. This is a demo file, so this is rather small. Now you'll see that I have some linkages here. This is part of that configuration that is already set up to be done automatically, and that can be done through configuration before you put in your first schedule. So I'm just going to click on one of these, and I can see a lot of the task information. This is all stuff that is brought over from Microsoft Project. None of that's here can be updated. Your source of truth will always be that XCR file. So we've got some completions information. These are all the dates turned on. You can turn off any dates that you don't want to see through that configuration area. For this demo, I left all of them on. WBS, this is just a link to the work breakdown line item that we have, and this is configured to automatically sync up. So if we went into the WBS, the work breakdown structure application, we would see a match. Labor units, miscellaneous, this is all information that is pulled over from the XCR file, and then we have predecessors and successors. So I'm going to click edit. Now I am logged in as an administrator, so depending on what your permissions are, this is the most information that you will ever be able to update. So I can add a specific company or contact to this scheduled task. I can, toggle if it's a milestone or a baseline. At this time, we don't do too much with these fields. I can also go in here and I can add a milestone. Now, milestones is another Kahua application that you can set up to do automatically. This one is not for the sake of this demo. In the configurations video, we can go into a little bit more about how these are set up for both P6 and Microsoft Project, because this is an area where the two file types are a little different. I'm going to save and close that. Now back to my log view, you'll see that this milestone is set up here. If I go to the Milestones app, because we do have this set up for schedule driven, the dates here are set. So I'm going to toggle back to our schedule tasks for a second. And I'm just going to choose a few more and select multi-edit. So from here, I can change the WBS items if I want. Rarely you would do that. And I can add these milestones in. If you're one of our federal users, this is something that you would have to do manually. A note with this manual process is that you only have to do this once. So as you revise your schedules, as we'll see in the next section, you'll be able to see that the milestones in the WBS items persist. So I'm going to save that. So now I have some milestones set. If I navigate back to milestones, you'll see that they are now populating here. So while we're in milestones, let's talk a little bit about the changes once you toggle in configurations milestones to be schedule driven. So we've essentially locked down these milestones. So there's not really much that you can edit anymore. So if I go in here to edit, I can put some of the information in for my general details section, but even logged in as an administrator, I can no longer change any of my dates. All of the date information is now coming directly from my schedule file. Now, why this is important, we don't want to have two different sources of truth, so that is locked down if you are choosing to have your schedule dictate the dates for your milestones. All other information does stay the same. Now, how these dates are calculated, your estimated dates, so your estimated start and end dates, will always be the earliest start date if you have multiple scheduled tasks attached to one milestone, and the latest estimated completion date. Actual start date is the same. It is the earliest date that you have selected. Actual completion date is the latest date unless there is no actual completion date. So if you have two scheduled tasks going to, we'll say pre-construction, one is completed, one is not, you would have the actual start date that would be the earliest of those two, but completion would remain open because it doesn't see that as a completed milestone. So let's navigate back to schedules and let's go through the revision process. So we're going to go into schedules. We're going to select our record. And we're going to click Revise. Now we get this pop-up screen, very similar to our new record. And we're going to select our revision file. Update my data date. And create that revision. And just like before, creating is the same equivalent of save. So we've now saved that revision and we're waiting for processing. So now I'm going to hit submit to start that process. So just like before, the system, the workflow, is now extracting all of the data. So if there are any new scheduled tasks, it is making a new scheduled task. It is updating any dates. So if there are any estimated dates that were changed, it's adjusting those. If there are now actuals, as we'll see in a second, now that it's processed, it's now going to show us those actual dates. So going into tasks, I'm actually going to change my multi-edit so we can see more of the date information. So now here you'll see that with the update, I have actual start dates and some actual end dates. Going to milestones, I now have actual values in place because all of them were completed for the ones that I selected. And then if we want to see a list of our revisions, we just toggle to the revision tab and we can see that here. You'll notice the only one that I didn't go into is performance. This is exclusive for our earned value customers and will be covered in a separate video. So I hope you enjoyed this quick overview of the rSchedule suite. And if you have any questions, please reach out to your Kahua representative or reach out to support@runding.com. Thank you.